Many, many years ago, there lived a hunchback who was mute. And the people in the village didn't like the look of him. He had a great big hunch on his back, and he had a big head, and he had a long face and a long chin. And because he looked so different, and because he didn't speak, they were a bit frightened, and that made them cruel. The children would call him names and throw stones sometimes, and all of this made him very sad. He didn't live in the village anymore. He'd moved out into the forest and built himself a little hut, and he would chop wood every day and take it into the village and sell it as firewood to the villagers. And they liked his firewood, the service, but they didn't like him. Whatever money he made from the firewood, he would buy food for himself and go out of the village and back where he was safe as fast as possible. But the people in the village did not know that the hunchback actually had many, many friends. All the little animals and the birds of the forest loved him because he was gentle, and he would let them come really close to him, and the robin would sit on his shoulder and the squirrel would sit on his knee, and he always shared whatever food he had with them every day. But there was one creature that he couldn't get friendly with. After he'd fed the other animals, he would go down to the edge of the lake in the forest, and there lived a swan. She was a mute swan, and unlike the whooper swan, she stayed there summer and winter. Day in, day out, the hunchback took his firewood into the village, bought himself some food, fed the little animals, and every day would sit beside the water, looking out at the swan on the lake. And he loved her and admired her. She was so beautiful, so elegant, with her lovely wings and her elegant neck and her beautiful face. And he would throw little bits of bread into the lake, but she would never come close. She ignored him completely. But he never gave up. Day in, day out, every day he was there, every day. Well, summer came round again, and with the warmer weather, it was lovely to be outside. The animals and birds were with him. He bought whatever food he needed in the village, and life went on like this. But still the swan ignored him. He would try other kinds of food, but it didn't make any difference. They knew that he loved her. Now, the days of summer were coming to a close, and then the autumn, and the first cold days came, and some of the animals began to prepare for the winter. They could tell as soon as the weather became cold that winter was on its way. Some of the animals found a little cosy nest somewhere. Some of them were gathering nuts to store. Still, the hunchback sat by the lake every day, throwing in bits of food, and every day the swan ignored him. And so it went on, until one day in the village, the villagers noticed the hunchback had not brought their firewood. And the second day, the hunchback had not brought their firewood. Now they'd come to rely on him, and they missed him, they said to each other. On the third day, we miss him. They didn't really miss him because they didn't like him. They hated him. They just liked that he brought them firewood, and that's what they missed. But the ones that really missed him were the animals in the forest. "Where is he?" said the squirrel. "Where is he?" said the rabbits. The first day, the second day, the third day, until by the third day, they were all very worried. And the robin, who is the king of winter, said, "We will have a meeting to find out what to do." So all the birds, the magpie, the blackbird, the sparrow, and the deer, and the hedgehog, and the rat, and the mouse, everybody sat around in a big circle. And they talked about their concerns that they had not seen their friend for days. Someone said, "The door of his hut is closed." Someone else said, "And there's no smoke coming from the chimney. What are we to do? What can we do?" The robin said, "We can go and speak to the owl, for she is the wisest one in the whole forest." So they made a trip to find the owl in the hollow tree, and they told her their worries and concerns about their friend the hunchback. And the owl said, "Well, I've seen him. I've seen him day after day sitting by the edge of the lake. I've seen that he loves the swan. We've all seen it, and she ignores him. I think that he must have a broken heart." A broken heart. They felt so sad. "But what can we do?" said a mouse. "Well, what you can do is get a message to Our Lady of the Lake. Tell her that she's hurting us because she's hurting our friend." The robin said, "Oh, I can't fly out over the lake." But the swallow said, "I can do it." And so the swallow flew out over the water and began to circle around the mute swan, obviously telling her the story and telling her about their concerns. And then the swallow flew back to them. They were all sitting on the edge of the lake watching. At first, there was just silence. And then she turned and began slowly swimming towards the bank of the lake. And then they watched as their Lady of the Lake climbed out of the water and began to walk one foot after the other, steadily, up the path that led from the lake all the way to the hut where the hunchback lived. And all the other animals, they were following behind, and the birds were chirruping and watching from the air. And they saw her push open the door of the hut with her beak and step inside, one step after another. She disappeared inside the hut. And all the animals gathered outside, and the robin was the only one that could flutter round by the window like this and was watching and reporting everything that happened. "What's happening?" they said to him. "What's happening?" And he said, the swan, she's walking over towards the bed. And now, what's happening now? What's happening now? Oh, now, she's leaning close to the hunchback. Does he see her? Does he see her? No, he has his eyes closed." Because he was laying still and quiet with his eyes closed, and had been like that for 3 days, not eating, just laying there. "What's happening now? What's happening now?" said the animals and the birds. The robin said, "Oh, now she's laying her neck over his neck." For the swan was thinking to herself, "He never wanted to harm me. Why didn't I come closer?" And she gently laid her long, elegant, smooth neck against his, and he opened his eyes and saw the swan. And his heart opened with joy that the swan was there. And then she turned her head and she took one of her feathers out of her own breast, and she took it and she, "What's happening now? What's happening now?" they said. The robin said, "She's got a feather, she's taken a feather, she's taken a feather." And then the swan took that feather and pierced the hunchback's chest with it. And the robin reported everything, because what happened next was incredible. The hunchback's body began to change and straighten and go strong, and his neck grew long, and he changed into a swan, just like her, a swan. And the robin was so stunned he couldn't speak. The others were calling, "Tell us what's happening," but the robin couldn't speak. He had seen something incredible, and he sank down and just sat on the ground with the others, stunned. But then they saw the door open, and out came 2 swans. And those 2 swans walked down step by step by step like this, down to the lake, and then one and then the other swam out into the lake. And all the animals were running behind, and they were so happy. "He has a friend now, he has a friend now," and they were rejoicing. And so it was that there were now 2 swans living on the lake, and they were peaceful and they were content. As for the robin, he never recovered his voice. He was so amazed at what he'd witnessed that all he could do forever after was to chatter, 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 repeat and repeat and repeat his song.